These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Beautiful Bag Podcast. I am your host, Leanne Hayden, coming to you from the loft. And this week, I have a special guest. Her name is Dana. Now, Dana and I have connected through online. She's listened to the podcast in the past, and she's funny. It was funny because when we were just talking a minute ago, Dana was like, the loft looks good. Loft looked good. So Dana, she has been through UC and Crohn's and the whole thing. We're going to let her get in and tell her story, but it's been for quite a while. But Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a ride. And I feel like at 45 years old right now, I'm just being able to wrap my head around everything and put parts of it to bed. And move forward.
And that's a good thing. And I love how you said that, because this is a lot of, because you've been in your ostomy now for what, 3 years?
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But it has been a 17-year journey for you to get here. So why don't we just take a step back, and then you can kind of, let the audience know, what happened, how it happened. It's been 17 years and, what you want to share from that, and then what led into the ostomy.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So recently I've been looking at myself as the version of who I was at that time in my life. So when I got diagnosed at 17 years old with UC, I was in high school. I was at that version in my life. I was that girl that was planning to go to college, had no idea what I was doing with myself, was just looking for a good time and the next thing to go out, travel, be with my friends, hang out, live that carefree life. Mm-hmm. And this all creeped up, and it creeped out pretty slowly. I had went away on vacation and I came back not feeling well. And I had been to various doctors and they all said, it's vacation. You got sick on vacation and you were away, you were out of the country, and this is what it is. And okay, that was fine, except I kept increasingly getting worse. And as things got worse, I also internalized everything and kind of kept it to myself. You're 17. Who are you going to tell? I had supportive parents. I had supportive family. But what do you do at that time? So I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, was put on the low level, the maintenance. And it was kind of okay, go about your day, go about your life. And I did. Then I went to college and I had a great time in college and I had quite a few flares. Looking back at that version of myself, my late teens, early 20s, again, it was about the party and having a good time, and didn't eat well, didn't sleep well, didn't take care of myself. But what was that? That wasn't the time in my life to do that.
Right. That's not what we do in college.
No.
We're there to study and get a degree. We're there to
get a degree
and have a good time.
Yeah. Do what you're supposed to be doing. Socialize, make friends, fun. And as I started flaring up in college, it was, okay, we'll put you on steroids. So I had the moon face. I actually just was looking at pictures the other day and it was wow, I had the moon face and then this tiny little body. Mm-hmm. That was that version of me. But you continue doing what you're going to do. And this whole time, I think up until the last couple of years, I pretty much faked it till I made it, right? You put a smile on your face. You don't want to miss anything. You don't want to say no. So it was a very silent struggle, or, very private things to myself, smiled, and it was I'm fine. I'm great. I'm fine.
And internally you weren't.
No. No. You're running to the bathroom. You live in the bathroom. That's your life. Mm-hmm. And you're constantly doing that and you're depleted. But again, I was young at the time. What is that? What's happening? I don't understand it. Things weren't really normalized at that time either. People aren't openly talking about how they feel. There's no platform. There's no social media. There's none of that awareness that goes on. So I lived that and I hit my 20-year-old version of myself, and I loved my life. I was doing it. I was working. I was keeping up with everything, and I was exhausted. Again, you live in the bathroom. And when I was about 24, 25 years old, I was told that I needed to have the J-pouch surgery done. So I had a surgery done. It was horrendous, not anything that I ever expected or envisioned in my life ever having. I think I was in the hospital for 10 days and I was super sick there, and it wasn't fun, but I kept that frame of mind. Well, this is going to cure me. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be fine.
Right.
I'm going to be fine. Let me get over this hump. So I climbed over the hump, and I did pretty well for about 9 months.
Okay, and at this time you're in your young.
I'm in my late 20s, yeah.
Late 20s, okay. Late 20s.
Well, the younger 20s, yeah, like 25.
Yeah.
You're dating at that time. Living after college, I never moved back home. I moved close to the city. I was socializing. I was trying to keep up with everything. And then I recovered from a surgery that I thought was going to cure me, and I felt great. And about 9 months later, it was like, damn.
Was it right back to where it was prior?
I started showing symptoms again. I was running back and living in the bathroom again. I was bleeding all the time. I was like, what is happening? And I was told, well, these things can happen. Okay. Oh. So we'll put you back on medication. So I went back on medication, and I can remember just going for infusions and going for shots. And then I had to have multiple blood transfusions, my 20s and my 30s. I had to have many different hospital stays to try to plug the hole because there was a small hole in the junct of the J-pouch that they weren't able to fix. But with that,
But with that, before we go into that, they said J-pouch. Had they ever talked to you about ostomy surgery at that point in time?
Never. And I went to a pretty GI group in New York and had a pretty great surgeon. And I was young, but I will also tell you, I never in a million years would have thought about having an ostomy. Right. My grandmother had one, and on it, stigma that I had was old people.
I think we all have had that moment. Like, no, I'm too young for this, because I think I got mine at 40. And I was like, no way. Like, old people, when you go and Googled it, this was even just 8 years ago. It was like old people. Now you Google, it's like all young people. I'm like, is there any old people that have? It's only young people.
It's so wild. So I think my vanity, if it was even presented to me, would have probably gotten in the way of that as well. And you invest into what your doctor says to you, and you trust them, and you trust the person that did the surgery, because this at such a low point, you have nowhere to go.
No, and they're supposed to be the experts in this, right? So what else are you going to do? You're going to just trust what they say. So now you're living here, you have a J-pouch, and you had your J-pouch for 20 years, right?
I had my J-pouch for 20 years, and up until I had my ostomy surgery, I never knew that there was a life, like the expectancy of having a J-pouch was only 10 years.
Really? I did not know that either.
When I had to kind of surrender the flag and say, okay, I have to have an ostomy, I was told, well, your J-pouch was hand sewn, and the longevity of an average J-pouch is 10 years. We can't believe you made it this long.
Wow. So what led to you as a way? Yeah. So at this point, are you still with the same practice? Are you still with the same GI doctor, or did you go to someone new?
So I stayed at the same GI doctor. I switched surgeons.
Okay.
So with doing that, I had, in my 20s, I had the J-pouch, and then things started to unravel again. And I kept myself going with the IV infusions, the injectables, blood transfusions, iron infusions on a weekly basis, because that was like back in the day where you had to have 10 iron infusions in order to get your iron level up a half a point. Like so silly. Now, medicine's evolved so much, it's not like that anymore. And I ended up getting married. And then I ended up having my son, and they're a very close watch with having my son. I had to have him by C-section. They told me there was not a chance I could go into labor, because if I went into labor, that was game over for me.
It would. Now, did they say why? Did they say would it burst the J pouch, or was it?
They
J
said it would burst the J pouch. No, they said that on average, it would burst the J pouch, whether if it was old or if it was new. When I had my son, I had a spinal and epidural. I had 2 anesthesiologists in the OR, and I had probably 6 surgeons at OB.
Yeah.
Because they weren't sure if anything was going to happen during the surgery, that I would have to go ahead and have a total repair, and they would have to put me out thereafter. Right. Thankfully, I didn't. But, you get all the feels with all of it. You get so excited. The best I ever felt in my life was being pregnant, because he acted as a little steroid. And then when he came out, everything unraveled again, and I was sick again. But, you look at the silver linings. Like, I'm so blessed and lucky that I had my son. I am so lucky that, I guess, ignorance was bliss, and I didn't know that J pouch was only going to last 10 years, and I lasted 20.
You don't hear that. You don't hear that from doctors at all.
No, you don't hear it. And my surgeon was pretty old school at the time. He was like the big surgeon who really started with the whole J pouch surgery, and this is how it was done. And then, some even medicine evolves, and the J pouch really wasn't working for me anymore. And I went downhill with what I thought was slowly, and it just really just was like very quickly.
Right.
Everything kind of just.
So now this has been, 20 years, you have a J pouch. You've been, you were sick for a little bit longer than that, right? Mm-hmm. And now here it is, August 2021, trying to figure it all out. You end up with a permanent ileostomy.
Mm-hmm.
Now you said in the notes that when we were talking, you said that it took you a while to get used to it.
It took me so much time. So leading up to the whole ileostomy, I had been hospitalized a few times for a couple days at a time to kind of just replenish myself. I was living in the bathroom at least like 40 times a day. However, I was blowing up instead of shrinking down, which was huge. And I was starting to turn like a nice little color of yellow.
Oh.
And I went to my doctor in the city, with a smile on my face. I had been seeing him. He had me kind of going back every couple of weeks, and the conversations we had, and I had been with him since I had been 17. So I felt like, he knew me. And he said to me, I think I really want you to meet with the surgeon just to talk. And I said, okay. So I went and I met with a new surgeon, and I had a friend with me. And I'm glad I did, because I blacked out the whole conversation.
Really?
It was basically, him said to me, I had just had an MRI angiography done. I had just had a CAT scan done. I had another x-ray done. And he sat down, and he was very matter of fact. And he was like, well, we can deal with things 3 ways. Number 1, you can have a J pouch revision. Number 2, I can give you a temporary ostomy. Number 3, things could be so far gone that you'd have to have a total ileostomy done. He's like, you are not a candidate for 1 or 2. You are a candidate for the ileostomy, and you're having it done next week.
Wow. So, yeah.
It was kind of like Charlie Brown, like the teacher that was talking, like, I remember sitting there. I remember hearing him. I remember the nurses sitting there and being, give me your arm, let's do your pre-op testing right now. And him saying, like, we're going to schedule the stoma placement. You have to go see this woman. And he's just sitting there and being like, come again?
So it was a good thing you had your friend with you that could kind of help you. What did she have to say?
She just took notes.
Okay.
You just need to have it all written down, which I was very happy about that. So it was easier for later on to go back and kind of reread what was really going to happen. Yeah, that was kind of a shock. And then I'm a planner, and I thought it was a week to plan this. And, I had been divorced for a little while, and it was my son's 7th birthday coming up. And I was like, well, I'm still going to have a birthday party. And I'm saying this to the surgeon, like, well, I have a birthday party to plan, and, I have some things to do. And he was just like, well, you might have to cancel them. So that was quick times. And then I went back 2 days later and met with the stomach nurse. And she took out a black Sharpie marker and it like lights out and passed out. It's like, what do you mean? You're drawing this on my stomach and I have to put this clear piece of tape over it when I shower so the surgeon can see where he's going to cut me. I was like, what do you mean I have to do that? Like, I was just floored.
Did you look up what an ostomy was? I mean, did you start to Google and research and start to look things up, or were you just kind of going through what they were saying, almost in a cloud?
Like I was in a cloud. I can be hard-headed, and to myself, I was like, "This is the biggest epic fail. I have worked so hard not to get to this point, and now I'm here. Like, what the heck? This is awful."
And that was in that moment.
It was in that moment. It was only in that moment. Like, it was just like getting like, it was like a tidal wave. It's all the emotions, you know what I mean? Like your life is changing. How long was this thing put me out for? Like, what is the situation? I have the old lady stigma still in my head. I'm like, my grandmother. So I kept thinking, yeah, she didn't have it. And I had the surgery and I remember I said to them, I'm going to walk in. Like, they're not feeling me in. I'm going to walk in. And I walked in for the surgery and I woke up and I was so bloated when I went in. And the next day, he took a picture of me side by side of the picture I had when I walked in. And I was like, deflated again. And he said to me, he's like, you were septic. The minute I opened you, the J pouch burst. He's like, you were like, glad you didn't have any other plans. Like,
glad you didn't have that birthday party.
No, I did have the birthday party. I had the next day. But he was like, I'm glad you could make it. Like, you could sit this in, kind of thing. Yeah. And after the surgery, I spent a lot of time crying because I just didn't feel well. When you don't feel well, you feel like, you're not in the best headspace then. And prior to the surgery, I had been living in such like a foggy little snow globe sort of thing where I just was foggy for so many years. And I was still foggy after. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, what? Like, how am I going to manage this?
Right.
They don't really give you a handbook.
Like, they don't. They have, I mean, there's so much education that can come around that they can do a better job at,
yes.
Kind of preparing you better for what's going to happen. Because there's so many questions that come up with it. And even, from prior, you're in the fog, you're in the hospital, you're still in the fog. I mean, you're all on this all medication and anesthesia, and you're trying to just get better to get the heck out of the hospital. And then you go home and you're like, what just happened? And then it's like, then you start to almost do your own research. Yes, you get sent home pamphlets and they send samples or whatever, right, for supplies. But you're like, wait a minute. What about, can I work out? What can I eat? What about intimacy? What about marriage? What about dating? What about, what about all the things that I do on a daily basis? And I think that comes later on, that sometimes you need to know all this stuff going ahead of time, but you don't know to ask that. You just know something's wrong. They're doing the surgery and they're just like, nope, we're doing the surgery. This is happening.
The whole saying is a surgeon's job is to cut.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no bedside manner. When the stoma nurses came in after my surgery and they would look at the bag.
Yeah.
And it was like, I want to say like this, like 3-foot long clear bed that went down to my knee.
Mm-hmm.
And like the whole grandma thing was going through my head again because I didn't know that there were other options.
Right.
Like, you don't know that. And then they're like, we're going to come back tomorrow. You're going to change it by yourself. Okay. I can barely stand or walk. I had the Barbie butt surgery along with it, which was worse than the stomach pain.
Because you're sitting on your side, but still trying to protect your stoma.
Yeah. And you're stuck in there.
Yeah.
And the dietitian comes in and she's like, here's 17 pages of what you shouldn't eat.
Wow.
And I still have it. I have it upstairs. I'm like, and here you go. And we'll start you on clears. And, we can see that your stoma's waking up and it's starting to work a little bit before we do anything. Okay. So those things all go through your head. And then I'm thinking, like, how am I going to keep up when I get home? Like, as a child, how am I going to keep up when I get home in general? So I put that smile on and I said, okay, silver lining. Number one, you didn't die. Number two, instead of hating it, maybe this will make things a little bit easier. Like you'll be able to sleep at night and you're not running to the bathroom and you're not having a million accidents. I mean, I can remember taking a flight to Europe and having like the biggest accident ever pre-ostomy and being mortified and like, how am I going to change my clothes? I'm washing my clothes in a clean bathroom.
Right.
A little stink and you're in there. It's like, it's kind of gross. So after that, I think I did. I hit my rock bottom after surgery. Like, I feel like that person that I used to know was gone. Like that version of me was gone. I was not me anymore. I was still on mine. And I laugh and I look at pictures. I look at myself in my 20s and I'm like, oh, who is that girl? She looks so well rested and, like not like an adult, like with your adult things that you have to do. And then I looked at myself in my 30s and I was like, wow, I was a new mom and I was tired because I had a little person, but I also was sick and I was sick in my 20s. And now I'm like, what person am I? I remember I was just like, I hit the bottom. It was awful. But I started to find the silver linings. Like this is not that bad.
Now, did you just start telling yourself that, or did things just start being like, you know what? Oh my gosh, I can eat that and it's not hurting. Or, hey, I'm not going to the bathroom 40 times a day right now. I'm okay. Are those some of the things that started to show you the silver lining?
When I came home after my surgery, the biggest aha moment that I had, even though I had such a hard time still wrapping myself around this life, was I only got up once in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. And has that ever happened? I don't remember that. And then I said, wow, that's kind of cool. Like, I got up once. I actually slept. Oh, that unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. Because I wasn't eating much at the time and I wasn't drinking much. And, I was just kind of trying to get into the groove of things again, abiding by my 17 pages of what I can't eat. So I was eating chicken broth and maybe a little things here and there.
Now, was that list because you were in the ostomy or was that list because of your UC?
It was a list because of the ostomy. They didn't want me to have a blockage.
Oh.
So because I had the J pouch done initially, they had taken a lot of that space to make the J pouch. Mm-hmm. Now, because I had to have the ostomy done, there is not much left to work with. So my surgeon was very, very clear. Like, we have used all the mulligans have been used. Nothing can happen to this at all. Almost scared me into it a little bit. Like, this is it. So they were very strict with all of that. Like, don't have anything, and the chewing and the chewing and the chewing and the chewing. But I also used that as a springboard to, okay, well, maybe it's time I treat myself better. Maybe I stop eating foods. Maybe I can start reading other things about inflammation because I had the RA from having UC. I can start looking into this. I have some time. I was home, I was like, maybe I can do that. And I started down that rabbit hole and I actually am a firm believer of that now. Mm-hmm. I've taken a lot of things out of my diet and my stomach doesn't hurt anymore.
And it would be so individualized too with that.
Yes. So individualized. Like, this is just me, based on me. The things that I might have eaten pre-surgery now that didn't make me feel good then, I also realized I don't think because I have an ostomy, it's even going to make me feel good now. Mm-hmm. So I just took it out of the equation. And I've become more aware. I've become more aware of being kinder to myself. And I have looked at it as just looking for the silver linings. I can go out to dinner. I can enjoy a nice day doing pretty much anything. My son has colitis. There's no way I could sit at a tournament all day long pre-surgery.
Right.
This is amazing. I'm not missing those little life moments anymore.
And you're still around to enjoy them too. You didn't wait too long for something to completely burst and you not to be around for it either.
Exactly. And I also feel like I have my control back. Everything else was out of control. I can think to myself, maybe it was depression. Maybe that's part of it when I pre-surgery because I had no control. I was crying in my closet because I didn't want anybody to know about it. Mm-hmm. Now I'm like, oh, like, I feel good. Like, I have my control back. I can make decisions. The clarity is amazing. thing very clear. But it took even like a year and a half after surgery to even get that full clarity back.
Well, that was probably lack of sleep too. Like you said, you haven't slept in, like you haven't slept in years. So your poor body was like, wow, we're going to take this up. So that, I mean, that's probably huge with the clarity. And then, like you said, you changed up your food, you took out the processed stuff, you started eating the better things. All of those things, little by little, make you so much better. I mean, and you said you would be hiding, crying in the closet because you didn't want anybody to know pre-ostomy. And here you are on a podcast, sharing with the world like, hey.
I feel like because, no, maybe I would like to help others because I feel like during that time in those other versions of myself, I didn't have anybody else to look at. And, you know, you have the surgery and then people are like, when you're cured.
Yeah, not when you have Crohn's.
It's just, you're not cured. You're not. I'd had, since my surgery, I think I'm still sitting in an MRI tube 3 times a year. I'm still drinking that barium. I'm still having the blood tests done. You have your flares still occur, but not to the extent that they were pre-surgery.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, I just feel like all of this happens and we all have things, right? Mm-hmm. It's just all how we use to carry it, how we surround ourselves with other people, how we treat ourselves. It took a lot of time, a lot of therapy to get there, but I feel good about it.
And let's talk about that because people, I mean, this is Mental Health Awareness Month too, right? So let's talk about therapy. How did that therapy help you? Was it just talking it out? Was it the journaling that you did? What was probably all of it?
So I had my surgery and I had said I hit rock bottom. I was pretty close with my GI. And for about 2 years, he had me seeing a PT therapist.
Okay.
Online that just dealt with Crohn's and colitis and dealing with some sort of upheaval, whether they were in the middle of everything and never had surgery or they had surgery. So I felt good talking to somebody that knew medically what was going on. And also it felt nice to have the validation, like this is normal.
It's normal to feel this way.
That you're going crazy and you feel so isolated. So I had that PTSD therapist. And then after I left her, I graduated into just regular therapy because I think it's great for life in general. And I met a friend of mine introduced me to a breath work coach who I worked with, and he rocked my world. I went in so skeptical. I went, what is this? This is going to be weird. And it wasn't. I mean, loved her. We met once a week. She gave me homework. She videoed what we did together so I could do it myself and listen to it. And then the journaling came with it and meditation came with it. And I went down that whole road of the Joe Dispenza and the walking shins. Things just kind of calmed down. Like I wasn't crying in a corner anymore or freaking out or feeling so like left alone. I was feeling like, okay, I can do this now. I felt for years, I feel like I silently relied on so many people. And now I feel like I can finally stand by myself.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
That must be such a cool feeling.
It was a cool feeling. I mean, I needed the following people. I mean, I would never have known that there was a PTSD therapist.
Well, so listeners need to know that, right? If you're going through something, you're feeling depressed, there are PTSD therapists. Therapy is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself. And there's all different types of therapies. And like you said, you graduated into, you went from one to a regular one to a breath work person to, learning meditation to learning all of those things. And it all is just that, it's not just you do one thing and you're cured forever. It's you do one thing and then you need something else. And then it's something else. And then but you get better every single day over time.
It's like,
okay, I'm all right.
Yeah, like I made it. I'm here. I'm good. And then, I started dating again and I started like just doing my thing. And, and I've had so many blowouts in public with my bag. And sometimes you're a little mortified, but I've kind of gotten over and past that now too. I'm like, it happens. It happens. We all have something.
It's almost easier to have a blow up. I'm imagining because I didn't have UCI cancer. So that's how I ended up in my ostomy. But, having a blowout on a plane in your clothes, the way you were sitting and all of that compared to a bag blowout. It's almost like the bag blowout's easier. It's all in your stomach. You can wash it all off. You can change into a new bag. You can wash your clothes up from your stomach from the front of you. You know,
Right.
it's not like the whole behind. It's still not fun, but, and they do happen. Yeah. So life has gotten better for you.
Life is better. And from something that I thought I was going to hate so much and that was going to ruin me mentally, physically, you know, and everything else, like now I'm like, all right, it's a part of me, like it or leave it.
So now what's the plan?
No, I mean, I started an Instagram where it's a girl with baggage, kind of just trying to normalize it. I signed up to talk to other people and started a support group in the area for people with ostomies. And I don't know, just kind of just trying to figure it all out. I feel like it's, no matter what you've had, everybody has something. It's how you embrace it, do something with it, right? We only have one shot on this roller coaster. You got to make the best of it.
It's true.
And look at you. You look fantastic. Story. And, you know, you look what you're doing with it. It's awesome. I listen to you. I sing all the time on Spotify.
I love that. I love that. It's almost like I have this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio. It's on YouTube. I'm actually doing, I put the videos now out on YouTube, and I'm just like, the messages need to go. I mean, we're in our 4th year. I think this is what episode B5 or 136, something like that. And it's been over 3 years of people wanting to share their stories and me sharing my blowout stories to help things that happen to me when I'm out and about, or I travel all over the world, and I have since my ostomy, and I talk about it, right? So it's sharing it's sharing that our lives don't stop because of it.
Yeah.
Most times our lives are better because of it. And a lot of people have to get over, like you did. You had to get over, you had PTSD. You had to go over the therapy. You had to get over the thoughts, right? And to get to next with me, it was more, I had to get over my thoughts. I had to get over my vanity, over, wanting to run around in a bikini all the time and thinking that I can't. But then I'm like, all right, now I'm 53 years old. I can still run around in a bikini. However, 53 years old, So, but again, you grow over time with it, and life just can get better.
And that's also a big message that I am trying to convey. I have a 10-year-old son. He is fabulous. Trying to go through all of this with him. I'm not hiding it from him. I explained it to him. I named my whole ostomy. So her name is Betty. So when my supplies come in the mail, I'll be like, Betty's bags are here. He's really good with it. And he went, I like to surf. Well, my 20-year-old version of myself and my early 30-year-old version of myself liked to surf. As I got older, like, the falling doesn't feel so good anymore. But, why not? We went away last year. We went to Costa Rica. I went surfing with him. The waves took me out. I stand up. My son looks at me and goes, your bag's back there. It fell off. What do you do?
What do you do?
You laugh about it. I had my then 9-year-old at the time running and getting me a towel and being like, here you go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I need him to see, part of it is, I need him to see that whatever life throws at you, it's what you make of it and how you can overcome it. So he's been a very big motivation for me. But I also feel like I worked really hard to not, to get through my 20s and my 30s the way I did. And looking back, hindsight, had I been offered an ostomy and been told really what it was all about, I might have taken it at that time.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you that question. If you could look back and tell that 20-year-old girl.
I think I would tell her, like, do it. I spent so much time in infusion clinics or in the hospital getting infusions or doing the home injections. Like, you name it, I took it. And now I'm thinking to myself, like, dear, how good was that for me? Am I going to grow another arm in the next 15 years? Like, you never know, right? But I mean, everybody takes something to help their illness along. But I was refractory to everything that was given to me, like stock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's kind of wild. And then, the statistics are explained that, like, well, in 2% of the people, this is what happens. Or in 5% of the people you see, and then you get diagnosed with Crohn's after. And a lot of it take it. you know, that information. So if I look back at my 20-year-old version of me, or my 30-year-old version of me, or maybe even right after I had my son and I was already laying there open on the table, like maybe if I had more knowledge and I had more information and I knew more about what life would be like, or maybe even, you know, had a crystal ball to see, I think I would have done it sooner.
Yeah. And seeing the people, you know, you mentioned, I mean, now we have the podcast and there's more people, you know, creating things and social media and people talking about it. Very, you know, the stigma is we're all trying to break the stigma as much as we can, or at least get the education out there. And I think it's there's more and more education. There's more and more people talking about it than ever before now. I mean, mine is 8 years old and there was nothing. Again, I Google and it was all older people. And I'm like 44 years old when I was Googling all this stuff. And, you know, it's definitely different now. So people like you know, breaking the stigma, let me talk about it. Let me share this. Like what would I tell my 20-year-old self? And now going through this, people in their 20s going through this and listening to your story and listening to other people's stories are like, okay, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad. Look at these people out there living their lives.
It's interesting too. Like you want to ask, now that I have this life, I almost feel like, and I do it, I go back and I ask the questions. Like I send so many DMs on Instagram to people that I don't even know and just like ask questions. Like ask the question. How are you doing with it? Like, how do you manage X, Y, and Z? Like, you know, I mean, I had somebody the other day who asked me, they messaged me privately and they're like, how do you manage like this bag when it's like unbearably itchy? I'm like, Flonase is my friends. It works for me. You know what I mean? And they didn't know the Flonase trick. Like, I just go like, if you can help anybody out there going through this, I feel like it's a win in general.
It's so true. It's so true. You know, Dana, it has been amazing talking to you about your story. And thank you so much for sharing all that you shared.
Oh, thank you.
Because you're helping a lot of people, especially because you now know the difference. You've been through hell and back, you know, for 20 plus years. And it's been the last 3 years, but the mental piece of what you went through after and the work that you've done. And you said, you know, looking at me now, I'm so much, you know, you're a whole different version of yourself and you look so healthy. You look healthy and happy.
Right. I'm healthy and I'm rested. And I feel just like, I feel normal. I mean, don't get me wrong. We all have our days, right? Where but so does everyone. And then, you know, you baby yourself. You might have used all your spoons for that day and then you pick yourself back up again. It's not going to last forever.
Exactly. So if you were to leave our audience, our listeners with just one thing, what would that one thing be?
I think it would be, ask the questions. And there are so many people out there to help you. And you're not alone in this at all. You might feel like you are, but you're not, you know, tap into it because there's so many people that are willing to share their story.
True. Well, we thank you so much for sharing your story with us this week, Dana. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Great. Bye.